Welcome to the Pult. Welcome to the Pult podcast, everybody.
Woo,
It's Pave
the
and
Pult
Pan.
Podcast.
Poohoo!
Pan and Pave.
It's good to be
Pan
with you.
and Pave.
It's good to be with
So
everybody.
I have missed you, especially you.
Yeah?
Not to the left, not so much, but you. Very much I've missed you.
Listening
We should
to
be
us.
hanging out more.
Right. Dan, if you're watching on YouTube or some other video platform, then between us, there is no Jess. Between us.
No, we had to. Well, there's been a bit of an accident.
No, there's been no accident.
There
we
was,
have a
yeah.
guest. Remember, listen, we talked about this
we
last
double
week.
booked the double booking accident. We didn't book. We booked Jess and this other person, so Jess cancelled.
Later on in the
cancelled Jess.
podcast, later on the podcast, we're going to be joined by Nathan White from our Perth location in Australia. But of course, we need to do our traditional opening of the podcast, which is to acknowledge the Terry the Triceratops, who is not with us. With salute Terry, and we also say we would love to be part of your team. This is our interview to be part of your team. We would love you to be a part of this team. And team members, we support each other. And at the Vault is where you find the wisdom. It's where you keep all of your most valuable items. And hopefully, we are valuable to you. Right?
Yes. I have computer skills. I've got nunchuck skills.
He's very good with Excel. So if you'd like,
I excel at Excel.
Dan has surprisingly good Microsoft Excel skills. So if you need that, please, this is the team for you. Now, so, excuse me, we are going to be talking for a few moments before we get Nathan on here, because Dan, you told me that we have some questions, I believe. We have a question.
Do.
We're going to do one question, I think.
Just one question. Okay, this question.
Wait! Before you bring it up, Dan, just remember that Dan is, of course, our official fact checker. I am Dave, your host, but it's just two of us. So today the rules are out the window. Dan, pick up those rules and tear them in half. Just rip them up. There we go. Just rip them up. The rule. Yep, that's it. We're a renegade duo today. We can do anything we want. And so to catch up, I guess, where we are right now, we've been catching up on the last couple of podcast episodes, talking about what we've been up to and what we've been doing over this last little season. And so today, though, I feel like it's about the future, right?
That's, of course.
Well, then again, Nathan White's probably going to talk about what we've been doing in the past. So maybe it's not quite about the future yet, but hit us with a question.
No.
What?
Sorry, you said renegade, and that got in my spirit.
Oh, right.
I just was being rebellious. I'll definitely look. Right. I've got something really funny.
You really? I wasn't expecting that.
I'm gonna read a question from one of our listeners. This person has been listening since our very first episode, and they sent this in on the 4th of March, 2020.
Oh, good.
Sorry,
that's right. This is because all of our questions are from the pandemic era.
Ready? And this starts this thing. Hi, I'm Nathan from Perth. This is actually from our guest a year ago asking a question. Isn't that fun? It's come full circle.
Oh, that's amazing.
But
what's this question?
We won't mention it later. He might get embarrassed. I thought this was great. He asked 4 questions. We're only going to answer one. What do you look for in a key leader? I thought that was a really great question.
I love it. Now, Nathan, thank you for your question. Thank you for your question, Nathan, and thank you for being on our podcast. What do you look for? Excuse me. I think our friend Nathan, the other Nathan that we know, Nathan Mclean, talks about this a lot. That one of the things sometimes we focus on is availability, and that can be sometimes our downfall because. I think sometimes it's better to look for capacity. So, for example, Nathan often talks about getting businessmen or people who have already high commitments because they have proven themselves to be able to handle a lot of things happening. You know what I mean? Like a high capacity leader can handle a lot of things going on in their lives and balance them out. And they are at high capacity because they are effective at doing what they're doing, right? So... So sometimes I think one thing you'd look at is excellent high capacity people who are potentially already doing things and got a lot of things going on in their lives.
Yeah.
Don't discount
So
them.
Yes, yeah. If someone is a doctor, you don't automatically assume they don't want to serve on your welcome team. It might be a perfect role for them, completely different to
Yes.
what they normally do.
That's right. That's very, very true. Like I've even had teachers who you think, oh my goodness, do they really want to come in on the weekend and then kind of in a sense teach more? But they love it. It's what they're gifted at doing. And so they actually come in thinking of a couple of our team and they're teachers, but they're fantastic on the weekend. And so don't...
And as an added bonus, they don't have to take the activity sheets home to mark them. So they love it.
Yes.
They absolutely love it.
Yes, there's no homework. There's nothing like that. So that's what the one thing I look at is, or maybe it's not look for essentially, but one thing I wouldn't discount is people who already have a lot going on in their life. Because the honest truth is, the things that they are doing, they may not feel, in a sense, called by God to do them. They might be doing those things as a means to provide for their family. And what you could get them to do could be actually the most meaningful thing that they do in their life, which is... And again, you have to really make sure they understand this. We're called to grow the church. We're called to reach kids, because if there are no children in your church, then in a generation your church does not exist. So you really need to sell them the vision of what you're doing. And so I guess that's my one thought of the day. Thank you to Nathan Mclean for that one. But I know Nathan was always very good, and he is very good at getting people who already have high commitments in their life, businesses, high levels in companies, and getting them involved. Good question, Nathan. Thank you for other Nathan.
I think just going off that, if we've got time, Dave, it'd be great just to chat about how we structure a key team within Hillsong Kids, because it might be a bit different from wherever you are around the world. But if you could chat through, the KSO role and all that kind of stuff.
Well, the way that we kind of think about our key teams is that's the people that are very much committed, highly committed, people who are available not just on the weekends but also available midweek for gathering together, praying, planning, leadership, talking about where we're going with this thing. And the way that we do, and we our whole ministry is structured around a key team leadership structure. So everybody on our services on the weekend, people are involved serving, but then we have key positions that we need to fill and plan and develop with. And so there will be meetings during the week, maybe a breakfast meeting. Again, going back to Nathan Mclean, he loves a breakfast meeting. Again,
he gets breakfast.
You get breakfast, and you get to hang out, and then you start your day, and everybody heads off to work. So there would be at odd times there might be breakfast meetings happening or evening meetings where this key team, pretty much our structure for leadership in Hillsong Kids is really centered around this idea of a key team, and all of our staff and team and pastors have got key teams that work with them. I would say you talked about a KSO, a kids service oversight. So we have multiple services obviously in Hillsong, up to at the moment in the city 6, I think at the moment 6. Yep, and across our 2 locations.
6 is correct.
Okay, great. Thank you, fact checker. Across our 2 city locations, 6 services. So we've got a volunteer oversight for every one of those services. And that's not just pastoral, but it's somebody who's like, this is my service, I'm going to make it happen, and then obviously team that work with them. So, but that's if you have more questions, please send us questions to
thevault at hillsong.com.
Well done. Send us questions to thevault at hillsong.com if you'd like to know more about KSOs or key leadership. But regardless of the KSOs, they would all be a part of your key team. And that key team is not this strict, structured, like sometimes you might have a role that you want to fill and you can't fill it, but you still have the key team and you're looking to grow into that area. So you have the key team whether you've got 2 or 20, and you build on it. You start with what you have and you don't spread, man, excuse me, bit of a frog in my throat. You don't spread the leadership across all the roles. You concentrate it in what their giftings and talents are, and you keep finding people to build who are right for the role that you've got to give them. So that means there might be a gap for a while, but that's okay. Dan.
Well, that brings up a little tip that I do know. I think Nathan Mclean again.
Yes.
It's a day of Nathans.
It is.
Would say that write out your key team, and if there's blanks, that's fine.
Yes.
You have your creative oversight, and you call them the creative oversight. There's no one there, but it's okay, because then you know that you need them, and more often than not, if you know that something needs to be filled, it's on your mind, and you'll be looking out for that, and it'll
leave an empty
existence.
chair, Dan. Leave an empty chair, not for Jesus, but leave an empty chair at your meeting for that person who has not joined your team yet.
I love it. Well, speaking of Nathans, there's a lot of Nathan talk. Is it time?
It is. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to be joined by Nathan White. Let me push some buttons and we'll be right back. We are joined by Nathan White. Let's give it up, everybody. Nathan White.
Come on, somebody.
Hey, guys.
What are we giving up for Nathan White? All the applause.
Everyone.
Welcome, Nathan White. So good to have you. Nathan White is the location kids pastor of Perth, the whole state of Perth in Western Australia. I mean, sorry, it's not a state, it's a city.
It's a city, yeah.
Yep.
Now, let's talk about it. You're here because you're the giver of wisdom, because this is the vault and you give us the wisdom. So let's kick this off. Dan, you want to ask him an opening question?
Well, yes. So what we decided to do, because we've brought you in because you are probably at the rebuilding stage further than anyone else in our group of churches. Perth opened. When did you guys open?
We went back to physical services in September, I think it was. Early October, late September, around then.
Yeah, fantastic. For those who don't know, Perth is on the other side of the country. It takes a long time to get there, so no one visits. So they didn't have any influx of COVID, which is great. Yeah. And not only that, you've also opened new campuses since. So rebuilding is in your DNA. So what we actually did was on a forum, I sent out some messages, and basically our Europe team, different kids pastors from around Europe. Shout out to the HSK Euro Club. They're talking about their biggest challenges, and I wanted to throw a few at you and see any advice you give in those situations. So we're probably going to go. We don't have a lot of time. We're just going to throw into it. First one is talking about teams. Big drop of involvement in their teams over this COVID period. How do we re-engage? What do you do in that situation?
Yeah, right. I think that's a situation that almost everyone's been in, regardless of church, regardless of department, regardless of ministry area. And so we're all kind of in the same boat there. I think the biggest things that helped us here in Perth was throughout COVID, we did all we could to try and keep our leaders engaged. So we ran some online connect groups through Zoom with the kids, called Kids Discipleship Groups, and that was really helpful to keep our leaders engaged, keep them in the habit of serving, keeping them able to still contribute, which really helped with retention when we went back into services. So that was great. The other thing we did was understand that losing team in this is a reality. Like that, it's going to happen, and it's happened, I think, to a lot of people and a lot of teams. And so being, I guess, okay with that, pastoring people through that transition if they're going on to a different team or putting a pause in serving for a while, kind of having a releasing spirit, which ultimately I think helps more people to come and join your team, or people who are leaving your team to have a positive ending experience with that, and then wanting to rejoin later or talking about it positively with others. So all of that was really helpful. And then we just tried to keep our programs as simple as possible. As we were rebuilding the team, inviting more people to join, we realized that how we ran Hillsong Kids in the past was going to look different. We simplified our program down. Some of the elements that we'd built up to and added previously pre-COVID, we then said, all right, we can't actually continue that post-COVID, so we're going to, put a pin in that, and we'll build up to that again. Was kind of how we navigated that, and still navigating it. Yeah.
So what are the core, Mr. White? put it this way. So we're pulling away elements. So what are some things you never want to pull away from a church service with kids? What are some things you feel like are non-negotiables in this season?
Yeah, non-negotiables would be encouraging kids. Non-negotiables would be having an atmosphere, an environment that is loving and welcoming, and a place that's safe for them. So not compromising on anything safety-wise, for sure. And then kind of key elements of our service has always been our preaching and our praise and worship. So our kids creative team took a big hit through COVID, and so when prior we would have leaders up the front leading the kids in what a typical adult service might look like, scaled down a little bit. Without that team, we then relied more heavily on tracks, more heavily on some of the creative content that you guys have put out over the last few months and years, but we kept that element there. It just looked a little bit different.
Exactly. That was one of my points I think I talked about in the last few weeks. Even though I just came to that point where I'm just like, we're going to do praise and worship regardless. So we're going to play a track. We're going to sing. There may not be a leader. It may be really even awkward at some points, but we just do it because when we gather together, we worship God. And so I kind of got to that point of just doing it regardless.
Yeah, totally. I had my first opportunity to lead worship. So the kids love that.
It's a dream come true. I don't do that because I tried it once and with our old friend Mclean.
Never again.
Back in the day, and I realized no, I don't. Not everybody is called to do everything. Dan, any more questions?
Yes, we need to move on as quickly as we can before you bust out your rendition. Yeah. Here was something really interesting. This blew my mind. I didn't even think about this. Obviously, COVID has brought up some interesting and unique problems, but there was a lot of talk about age group transitions. Kids are coming back after some places a year, some places 18 months, and they haven't yet transitioned into certain age groups, certain rooms. But some kids haven't actually transitioned into Hillsong Kids at all. So they can come into the room as early as 2. But they could be 3.5 years old, and they've never experienced kids before. Did you find any of that? What would some wisdom?
Yeah, we had a variety of kids' experiences. So some who hadn't been a part of our church before, of varying age groups, but had connected in through Hillsong Kids online through COVID. So their first experience was an online experience. And transitioning them in was probably one of the easier transitions that we've done before, because they kind of had this build up in an environment that was comfortable, like being at home, and then they get to kind of experience Hillsong Kids in the room, which was awesome. Then there's the age group transitions, which was grade 6s going into youth was a big one, or young kids coming into Hillsong Kids. And with both of those, when we identified people who were going through or had gone through those transitions through COVID, just working with families, getting in touch with parents, encouraging them around that. It looked fairly similar to how any kind of age group transition would be, which is heavily involved with chatting with the parents, talking people through, providing all the information that they would need so that both parents and kids are comfortable with what they're stepping into. Yeah.
Very good. That's interesting that sometimes it could be easier. Like I've seen a couple of new kids in our services here in Sydney, and I've never seen them, but they've seen me online on our online services, or they've seen us on the videos that we create. And these two kids were like, but and what? They couldn't wrap their head around. I was on screen and I was here in the flesh. And so it was awesome because then there's an immediate connection there. So sometimes, some ways, well, in the way that we've done it, it's easier for me is what I'm saying. Maybe not for everybody, but stuff like that really helps.
Easier for the superstars, Dave.
All the superstars.
We had some kids that were so active in our Sunday night games thing we launched online that then they would walk through Hillsong Kids. They come back and there was like leaders coming up to them and going, "Oh my gosh, it's Ashvik."
Ashwick and family. Yes, we did have. A lot of our kids that really stepped up and got involved in online Sunday night games. You know what I mean? It was a small percentage of kids. It's like the 80-20% rule. 20% of your kids give you 80% of your content for our Sunday night games submissions. But that 20% of kids were so engaged, and I think that's a good win. You can never get 100% of the kids 100% of the time. So take the wins.
Yeah, that's true. Look, one last question, a bit of a theme that came up through all their challenges. I think it was great to chat about how do you stay flexible in such a changing environment. They've had to be flexible with their rooms. There's new spacing requirements with social distancing. You have to wear masks. You don't. You can sing, but you can't. And it changes on the time. How do you keep flexible? How do you get your team to stay flexible so they're not getting so disappointed with all the changes and things that happen?
We had an interesting one here in Perth where we returned to services, and part of the reason that we started new locations was because the gathering restrictions that were in place meant that we didn't all fit anymore, and so we had to open either new services or new locations, and it all looked different. And then some of that changed over time. Some weeks we had to wear masks, some week we didn't. Communicating that with our team, it was all about communicating the why, communicating, why is it important that we have these policies or regulations in place in order to keep the kids safe, in order to keep us safe. Just being up for that journey, understanding that this year looks different, and that's okay, and that's part of the joy and the fun of working with kids, of working in church, and I guess being up for that, but not how do I say this? Not avoiding having conversations with team, like being up to catch up. Like if they're unsure about what's going on, if they're confused about what's going on, saying, hey, let's grab coffee, or let's catch up over Zoom, or whatever it is that you're able to do in your area, and let's talk it through. Like being okay to have those conversations, I think, is really helpful for team.
Brilliant. Ladies and gentlemen, Nathan White in the house. Thank you very much for your wisdom, sir. Well, that is our Vault podcast for today. You've been listening to three men wearing giant black headphones and talking about Hillsong Kids and kids ministry in general. We'll see you next time with another guest. Who knows, Dan? I don't even know when we'll see you, because we're doing these, we're not. Who knows, right?
Pretty sure we're back.
We're back. We're back. Bye, everybody.